Hi, my name is Alexa Riley, and I am on week 14 of my spring 2020 internship at Vidant Medical Center in the Behavioral Health Unit. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about my experience, what I feel like I got out of it, what objectives I met, what I wish I could have done differently, just all that kind of stuff. So, going into the experience, I didn't really know what to expect. I've never been on a behavioral health unit. I've learned about the diagnosis in school. I've heard other people do internships at sites like this, and they had really great experiences, and I was kind of thinking maybe this is kind of a setting I wanted to go into long term. So I really wanted to get an internship in a behavioral health unit. And Vidant ended up being the perfect location for me. I had a great supervisor. I've had a great experience even with everything that's going on, and I feel like I got a ton out of it. And there's not really anything I would change about it. Going into the experience, they wanted us to kind of set goals and outcomes we wanted to reach. So I really wanted to learn how to do assessments because we had classes on them, but it kind of isn't the same as when you actually get them in a facility. I didn't have any confidence in giving them. We learned about so many different types of assessments. I was like, I'm never going to remember this. And we had only practiced on giving them to other students. So that was something I really wanted to work on. Also, going into the experience, I never led a group session. We had done one-to-ones at nursing homes through school, and I worked at a summer camp, but I always worked on one-on-one clients with autism, so I hadn't really done group interventions before, so I really wanted to build confidence standing up in front of people and talking and kind of learning how to create a group that they're really going to benefit from, especially since I wasn't really familiar with the diagnosis that I was going to be working with. So when I went into Vidant, we got 12 weeks on the unit before all this coronavirus stuff happened. So with my 12 weeks, I probably got more out of my 12 weeks than I have gotten out of a couple years of school. I mean, this was the best experience, and I took away so much from it. So when I first started, we did a lot of shadowing. Crystal was my supervisor, and so I shadowed her a lot, and she also let me shadow other recreational therapists on the unit, which was really great because I got to see all the different perspectives, and everyone kind of has like their own interventions that they are kind of their go-tos. So it was really cool to kind of see that because I like the creative arts and that kind of stuff. So it was really cool to be able to see, you know, what this person really enjoys, and oh, here's someone who really likes to do creative art stuff. So like here's some of their ideas. So that was really cool to pull from and kind of get other people's perspectives on like how I'm doing leading groups. So the first thing we started with was me writing assessments and kind of being there when she gave assessments. So I would follow along on the assessment sheet and kind of take notes myself, and then I would type it up on the computer and then for us to kind of go over it together before we add it to the patient's file. This was really good because then when I actually had to type them up, I saw how important it was to make sure that I remembered to ask all the information on the sheet. It's really easy when someone gets talking to kind of forget about asking those key things, and in the beginning I did. Like I'd forget to ask, you know, are you using substances? Are you still having those thoughts you heard in yourself? Really important questions that we need to know. So that was a really good learning experience, and when I started giving assessments to patients, she was really good about reminding me to make sure, hey, you have to ask this, and just making sure I was hitting on those key points so that when I went in, it started to flow really naturally like a conversation. I was making sure I got all the information I needed for the patient's file. So eventually I was able to go in and give an assessment. She would be able to kind of stand in the corner and, you know, make sure that I was doing it right and step in if she needed to, and then able to just kind of type it up on my own, and just felt really confident and independent by the time I left my 12 weeks of doing that. After I kind of got the assessment thing down, I really focused on my groups. So we started leading leisure skill development groups. So we have those in the evening times, and it's for anyone on the unit. So it doesn't have to be someone that just has rec therapy orders. It can be anyone you've kind of been working with and you kind of want to get them involved in groups. Like this is a great start because it's really more fun-based. We want to teach you a new activity. We want to get you talking and just having kind of a good time. You know, it can be not the most fun atmosphere while being in the hospital, so it's kind of nice just to bring a smile to a patient's face for an hour. So we focus a lot on games and going outside, music, anything that could kind of bring them enjoyment. So I like to do games a lot and then kind of play music in the background because that's just something you kind of like to do with your friends. So I kind of got the practice of explaining games to patients and kind of building that rapport. So I slowly became more comfortable, and then I started leading low groups. And so my first group I led was a low group / senior group. And this was a huge learning experience for me because I went into group and I thought I was prepared. I thought I picked a really good topic. I did problem solving. I talked it through with Crystal before. I really thought it was going to be a great group. And quickly into it, I started to sink a little bit because the discussion was not going the way I wanted to go. People had huge problems that weren't being solved by my worksheet, and that's kind of what was being expected. It was a lot of living situation and money problems and all that kind of stuff, when in my mind I thought we were going to focus a little bit more on stress or getting out of the hospital. So I wasn't expecting the way the conversation was going to go. So this taught me a lot about how to plan a lot of backups for group. If I had really planned out that group well and had come prepared, I would have had other activities or just a way to kind of regroup and go a different direction with that discussion. But I didn't bring anything else but that worksheet and the activity I had planned, so we kind of had to go with it. But that was a really good experience because after that I planned my groups a little differently, and I came with a lot of backups in case something went bad. So once I started kind of doing low groups and kind of building that more confidence, I would kind of do bullet points of all the things I wanted to hit and kind of bring like extra worksheets or an extra game, just anything in case the group wasn't kind of going the way I wanted it to go, so that I could redirect. Because I realized you just never know what kind of day someone's having, where the discussion's going to go, what's going on in their lives. You just don't know. So you have to come prepared. So I think my favorite low group that I ever did that was really a good boost to my confidence in leading groups was my self-esteem group. I had seen this really cool activity on Pinterest where you got to watercolor, and I love that kind of stuff. So I had been saving this group and was so excited to do it. And I ended up having a all-boys group, and I was like, oh gosh, you know, how is this going to go? I'm about to ask all these men to watercolor with me. But I went in there really confident. I was like, all right, we're talking about self-esteem today. You know, what does a person that has good self-esteem look like? You know, what are traits we can work on? And kind of rating our overall self-esteem of what we're going to do. And then at the end, we ended with our watercoloring activity. And they loved it. It was really creative. You took Ziploc bags and markers and created your own watercolor, and we printed out these self-affirmations and positive quotes they could hang on their walls, and they just really enjoyed it. So that was a really awesome experience to kind of see. Like, I went into group not knowing how it was going to turn out, and it ended up being one of my best groups with Lo. So that was really cool. After that, I kind of moved into high group for a little bit. And high group was a different experience of planning because with low, you might have people that were responding to internal stimuli or are maybe a little bit more childish, just lower functioning, might not be able to read or write. You never know what you're going to have. So I had to bring a lot of more simple backup activities than I did with high groups. I made high groups a lot more discussion based because everyone kind of had longer attention spans and could kind of concentrate a little bit better than my low group could. They kind of went through activities a little bit faster. I would think things would take longer than they would, and they'd finish them in like 10 minutes instead of 20 minutes. So I realized with high group, I was planning all these activities, and sometimes we would be on one worksheet the entire time. And it was actually kind of cool because the reason we were on these worksheets for so long was because in these certain groups, the patients would really lean on each other. They would start opening up and kind of sharing what was going on. And I can't always relate. There's a lot of things people say that I can't relate to because I just haven't been in that situation. They know that, I know that, and it's fine. So that's why groups are so cool, because someone across the table could be going through the exact same thing. So I had a lot of groups where patients kind of leaned on each other, gave advice. Hey, this is what I did when I went through this situation. Just making each other feel like they're not alone. Because a lot of people that do come into the hospital, they feel alone. I mean, they're away from their families and friends. They might not be able to visit. You know, they're in this place that they know nothing about. So it's really cool when you see patients be able to connect in a really positive way. So a lot of my worksheets I did discussion based to kind of like pull that out of people. If I had groups that wouldn't really talk, that's when I really brought in some activities and stuff. I would say probably my best experience with high group was I had this patient, and he always participated in discussions. He was a really good support system for other patients, but when it came to activities I planned, he'd kind of like write one word, put his pen down, and wasn't about it, which is fine. You know, everything I plan is not for everyone. And it was a lot of journaling. We did postcards to people we want to communicate better with. I was just trying to get them to really thinking. They really wanted to focus on communication that week. A lot of people were isolating themselves, very withdrawn. So we really wanted to focus on communication. So at the end of the week, before this patient was going to be discharged, he pulled me and my supervisor to the side and kind of told us that, you know, he really liked these activities and he felt like he got a lot out of it. To another recreational therapist on the unit, he told her how much he liked the postcard activity and like read it to his wife. So like that was a really good feeling, because I was bringing these activities to group, and I actually didn't think that he liked them or was completing them, but really he just needed to complete them on his own time. Like, he always took them after group, and he said that he just sat in his room and he did them. He just needed that silence, that moment to think, reflect, and he got a ton out of it and really helped his relationship. So that was really cool, because it kind of boosted my confidence. I was planning things that people liked. You know, they don't always have to complete them in group. I'm providing them resources that are going to benefit them. So that was really cool, and it was kind of, you know, the confident boost you need every now and then. So that was really cool to feel like our groups were really kind of giving the patients exactly what they needed that week. I also started doing a lot of one-on-ones. So we have one-on-ones with patients that just aren't right for the group setting, and then we also had one-on-ones to kind of work with patients to get into groups that maybe didn't have recreational therapy orders. And for some people on the unit, they're there for a really long time because of just finding placement for them, you know, where they're going to live after, setting up ACT teams and stuff. So this was really good. It kind of helped me really build a relationship with certain patients on the unit. So this is where documentation was really important. So we documented after every group and every interaction. Even if a patient didn't have RT orders, we were going to document on what we did with them, because we were building rapport with them. You know, they were telling us important information, and we wanted to, know how they're doing on the unit and if they're structuring their free time. So documentation was a little challenging for me in the beginning, because I had never done it before. This was something else I really wanted to learn during my internship, was how to document like we were supposed to, because everywhere does it different. Every teacher kind of taught us different, and they would say, wherever you go next, they're going to do it different. So this was really good, because I had never documented quite like Vidant wanted it. They really wanted us to focus on the behaviors that the patient had, how was their affect during group, what were they doing during group, were they really engaged in the activity, did they have to be redirected a lot, did they look like they were responding to internal stimuli, all those important things that we need to know. Were they talking about their support system or what they're going to do post-discharge, all those different things. So I always thought in the beginning, oh, I'm doing a great job documenting, I'm writing everything I need to put down, and in reality I wasn't. I would have all these patients, and sometimes I would forget important things. So Crystal really taught me kind of how to handle that in a group setting, especially take your worksheet and write their initial next to the quality they want to improve on, make little notes, do all those different things, document right after group so you can remember, and this is what you need to focus on, the behavior, how they did during group, and was there anything significant that they said. And just breaking it down like that and being able to write it down really helped me to make sure that I was documenting efficiently and I was getting down everything I needed to. So that was really great and really helpful. So I also did treatment teams. I had never done that before. We went in, I always went with Crystal normally once or twice a week to treatment teams, just kind of depending on how many groups I had to lead. She always gave me a lot of time to make sure that I was prepared. So I normally went to 1 or 2 treatment teams a week, and this was just really cool to kind of learn more about diagnosis that patients had and kind of just like their background stories and like how they were doing outside of our groups. You know, sometimes we would think patients were doing really great in group, and then you know, they're not doing so great on the unit, which of course we can see this in the note, but it just gives a little bit more detail, and then we can kind of know, you know, what should we be focusing on in the group, you know, can we talk to them and kind of help out with everything. I also learned a lot about medications because they always talked about adjusting and what medications to treat what, which ones to try first. So I learned a lot about that because that's not something we learned about in school. We kind of learned about the overview of the different diagnoses, but kind of not really the medication side of it. I also got to hear a lot from the social workers about placements and, you know, figuring out where everyone's going to go after, about what ACT teams do, all these different steps. So it was really cool to see what everyone's job was when it came to patient care, and also to like see how respected recreational therapy was during these teams. The doctor that led our team, she always asked how they were doing in group, all that kind of stuff. Was really good about writing them exercise orders and range motion orders, anything that we needed. She was really supportive of that, so it was really cool to see like how well liked recreational therapy is and how well respected it is at Vidant, because classes kind of always talked about that. You know, you have to be an advocate for your field. You might not always get that kind of respect among other disciplines, but that was not the case at Vidant, so that was really cool to see. So when our 12 weeks came to an end, we got sent home because of the coronavirus going on, and just to keep everyone safe. We weren't essential to be there since we were interns, so they decided to have us finish our internship remotely. So we had been writing protocols every week for group sessions we would lead, talk about how we would adapt based on, you know, different patients they might be seeing. We've been doing webinars that get us CEUs, so we've been learning about psychosis. We did kind of more rehab-focused webinars one week, so it was really cool. We've been trying to learn about different departments too, and kind of how that knowledge can apply to us also. We've done a couple different research papers. We wrote a case for why recreational therapy is important and why we saw the need for it on our internship unit. We did a research paper on diagnoses, so we've really been getting the experience just differently. I would have loved to have finished my last couple weeks at Vidant versus being at home, but they've really still kind of given us a great experience. It's very different. Obviously, we're not working with patients, but we're learning how to take initiative and still learning and getting all of our assignments done and still pushing ourselves. This opportunity also gave us a lot to focus on our special projects. So we do our special project the whole time we're at Vidant. It's one of the specific assignments that come from Vidant, not from UCU. And so you want to pick an intervention that you see your unit needs. And so me and Daylen's, that was the other intern, supervisors brought to us that they have all these iPads and they don't get to use them in group. Like, no one's just taking the time to really set up groups that could be based on using the iPad. So we spent our semester working together, going through every free app we could find to kind of find the best ones, and then we wrote groups based on how to utilize the app, like what topics would go well with it. Here's handouts and worksheets and how to use the app in a therapeutic way. Here's a resource sheet to get patients at the when they're discharging, so they know how to continue using these apps. Anymore, our world is so technology based. Everyone seems to have phones, computers, all that kind of stuff, and we're on them all day long. So we felt like if we found apps that were really easy to use and kind of fun at the same time, people would keep them downloaded on their phone and hold themselves accountable. So we focused on coping skills, goal setting, stress management, journaling, just kind of the main topics we do in groups anyways, so that they can kind of continue it once they're discharged. Because a lot of patients that come back in again are like, oh, you know, we weren't using those positive coping skills. We let our stress get too big again. We weren't communicating what was going on, all this kind of stuff. So these apps are going to help hold them accountable. which was really the goal we wanted. I mean, we wanted to spend our semester on something that was really going to be utilized and the other departments could use too. We got really great feedback from everyone at Vidant saying, you know, we can see this being used in rehab. We can see this being used in the maternity unit, all that kind of stuff. So we finally got that submitted this week since we're almost done with our internship. We turned all that in and we did our presentations remotely. So we made PowerPoints and everything and turned in all our protocols and worksheets. So it all worked out fine in the end, and I think it's something that's going to be really helpful to Vidant, and it was a really great experience for us. I mean, writing, gosh, I think over 10 interventions or 10 protocols altogether, and kind of collaborating with someone else and kind of advocating for why we thought this was an important and great asset to the unit was a really great experience, and it's something, you know, we can talk about later on in interviews when we, you know, find other recreational therapy jobs, all that different kind of stuff. And we kept all our interventions that we've used throughout the semester to kind of have, you know, our binder to be ready to go into somewhere and kind of start leading groups. So that's been a really good thing that we did. I think that is everything. The quick lowdown of my internship. I really enjoyed everything about it. There's really nothing I would change. Crystal was the best supervisor I could ask for. I mean, she really supported me. She's still taking the time to make sure that I'm getting everything I can get out of this internship, and I feel like you can't ask for anything more than that. I came out meeting all the goals I had set for myself. I feel like I can give assessments, I can document, I can have patients, and I can plan a really great group for them. And I know she's a huge reason why I feel that way, because she was a really great role model and really pushed me to be independent and just be my best self as a therapist. So I have a huge thanks to say to her, because without her, the internship, you know, might not have came out this way, especially with everything that went on with it going remotely. So thank you. And I would be happy to be a resource for anyone else that ever applies to Vidant or a behavioral health unit, and would be happy to share my experience with them and any other ECU students that are interested. And I'm really grateful that I had this opportunity.